Recently, I was given a piece of advice that kind of ticked me off. Someone told me you need to make shorts. There's nothing wrong with making shorts, but there's also plenty of problems with them. There's many problems I could talk about: the cliches, the fact that they're mostly student films, the lack of production quality, the writing, the directing, the general concept, and the just massive amount of short films in general. But today I want to talk about the problem with making short films, why it can be harmful and a waste of time to spend all your time and energy on making short films. Short film can mean any film that's not a feature film, any film under 80 minutes. But for the sake of this video, I'm meaning pretty much any film under 20 minutes. The best part about a short film is that you can practice one technique, one skill, and get it right. If you want to practice your scene writing and make interesting dialogue, you can write a really good short script and film it. Or if you want to practice your lighting, you can spend time learning lighting techniques and light 3 or 4 really good scenes and have a short film. Or if you have a really small story that you want to tell, there's no use expanding it into feature-length format if you can tell it in 4 or 5 minutes. Shorts also lend themselves to the idea of a concept film, like Lights Out. It's a simple concept and it only needs to be shown for about 2 minutes. There's plenty of easy short films you can make, but if your goal in making a short film is to get recognized, that could be a problem. So today I want to argue the point. The problem with short films is that they're too good. That's not a problem in and of itself. If you love watching short films, and if you love making short films, and if you want to have a career in that, that's great. But the majority of people making short films want to get recognized. They want to make feature films. They hope that by putting their film on YouTube or putting it in the film festivals, they'll be recognized and given the chance to make a feature film. The problem with this thinking is that there's so many short films in existence, it's impossible to stand out. It has happened in the past. David F. Sandberg was seen on YouTube after Lights Out went viral, and now he just directed Shazam. It has happened in the past. People do get recognized for their short film work. But if this is your only avenue, it could be a problem. Short films, while you practice on working on a technique, are different from feature films. Yes, they're filmmaking, but just like poem and prose both use words, they're always different. A short film tells a short story. It uses the same techniques of feature filmmaking while using different narrative structure. You can shorten the feature narrative structure and it will make a great short film. You can expand a simple short film and it could make a great feature film. But short films are fundamentally different. What makes a good story stays the same. If you care about your character, if they change, if they have conflict, those basic things can stay the same. But a feature film is fundamentally different from the structure of a short film. You have to learn different techniques. You learn pacing, you learn how to bring in characters, you interweave scenes, and you learn about length. When do people get bored? How do you keep them entertained for 20 minutes? How do you bury in exposition throughout a plot? If you read a review of a film today, most of the problems reviewers have are not the directing, they aren't the lighting, they aren't the sound quality. The problem with feature films today are not the same with the problem of short films today. Short films can get plagued for their acting or for their sound quality, but a feature film will get plagued for its bad writing, its pacing, its overuse of visual effects, its story or the lack thereof. So in order to explain why I think short films being too good are a problem, let's take a look at some. In 2018, a feature film called Ken came out. It was directed by Josh and Jonathan Baker and was based on their short film Bagman. Bagman was a good little film. It had an interesting concept and reeled the producers into making a film. Ken, on the other hand, while it still was intriguing, was basically just a bloated short film. It had many of the same ideas, gave too much backstory, and in the end, was a flop. So what went wrong? What made a great short film, yet a terrible feature film? But then David F. Sandberg created Lights Out. It's under 5 minutes and has basically no story. It's just a neat scare. It does it very effectively. Yet when Lights Out was turned into a feature film, it was a hit. It made nearly $170 million. What's the difference between a success and a failure? Notice the quality was not on the short film that got them discovered. The quality is on the feature film. If the short film is a story, it's probably not going to be expanded very well. But if the short film is just a concept or an idea, it can be expanded. Take for example George Lucas's THX 1138. While an interesting concept in and of itself, its story is about a guy trying to escape, and when he does escape, the movie's over. The feature film version was a flop. It tried to expand this idea. But what makes a short film successful does not make a feature film successful. While the craft that went into it was undeniably great, it didn't make a great film. So when you spend all your time working on a short film, making it as good as you can, it's not preparing you for a feature film. When you go to a film festival, you see multiple short films. You get inspired to make your own. And when you make your own, it may be great. Your goal becomes to create short films, to create better and better short films. But in the process, you forget that your goal is to be a feature filmmaker. You assume it'll just come naturally to you when you get discovered for a short film, but that's not how it happened. Unless you're just developing your skill in one area or another on a short film, you need to be making feature films. The process of creating a short film is the same as a feature film. You write it, you direct it, you edit it. This leads many people to believe a short film is just a small feature film. But why do some feature films fail when they're basically just a short film expanded? Another example is Alive and Joburg by Neil Blomkamp. It was expanded into District 9. While not a massive box office success, it was a mild box office success. It was an interesting concept, but the short film itself wasn't just great. The short film displayed the writing and direction and the interesting concept, but it didn't tell a succinct story all on its own. The story wasn't expanded, the concept was. Just like Lights Out, the story in the feature film of Lights Out is totally different from the story in the short film. The short film barely even has one. So by focusing on making a powerful short film, you're messing with your skill to make a good feature film. Definitely work on your direction, work on your writing, work on the acting, work on the lighting in a short film. But just remember, the story that makes a feature film cannot be learned in a short film. So why do people continually do shorts? If you're hurting yourself by making short films, why do people keep making them? One reason is it's easy. It's incredibly easy to make a short film. Of course things go wrong, of course you have problems, of course actors don't show up, of course you have every problem you would when making a feature film, but you only have it for the few days that you're filming. If you choose to make a feature film, you aren't just making a film. You're choosing to commit to a project. You have to follow through, and even halfway through, you have to continue to finish it. It took me 3 years working weekends, sometimes a month apart, just to get one film done. And while the results aren't spectacular, you learn a whole lot more through a feature film than you would through a short film. If you watch it with the audience, you absolutely cringe when you see how long you took to set up a sequence. You cringe when you see a sequence didn't execute the way you thought. You notice the structure, and you see how you can improve it. And while the lighting and direction, those things still are key, a short film can't teach you the structure of a feature film. But in defense of short films, there have been some great ones. Pixar's Spark shorts are incredibly moving, they're emotional, and they follow the basic structure of a feature film. They have an Act 1, an Act 2, a Plot Point 2, and then an Act 3. They're character-based, and they work. But if you were to expand one of these short films, I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but you'd have to be more creative, you have to bring in more. You can't just expand a story, you have to create almost a totally new one. And while it may hit some of the same plot points, you have to remember you're creating a new story. What makes a short film successful won't make a feature film successful. So maybe you understand that. Maybe you understand you need to make features eventually, so you make one or you write some. Maybe writing them is the way to learn. You see how the process works, how structuring a feature film is different from a short film, and then you hone your craft on a short film. The biggest problem with making short films is that they don't get discovered. There is no potential for a short film. Unless it's discovered by an executive or picked up for a rare distribution opportunity, short films practically go nowhere. Yes, you can get them into film festivals, but everyone else is doing it. Yes, you can put them on YouTube, but everyone else is doing it. When the crowd's all pushing one direction, I like to go against it. If you want to make feature films, you need to make feature films. Yes, it's harder. Yes, a lot will fall through, but then you learn that a feature film is fundamentally different. You learn the process of making it. And yes, you can make short films to hone your directing talent. If you want to direct a little horror sequence, go ahead, by all means do it. If you want to direct a little action sequence, by all means do it. But unless you get discovered through shorts, you need to be prepared to make a feature. I say when you do shorts, you won't get discovered, because there's so many people. If you have, that's great, and if you know someone who would see your short if you made it, go ahead and by all means put all your effort into making a great short. But be prepared to make features. One of the scariest things I heard recently was Freddie Wong. Freddie Wong was an early YouTube sensation. His incredible little short films mixed with visual effects and high action were great. He crowdfunded a few projects, and his YouTube channel has over 8.5 million subscribers and over 1.6 billion views. In a recent interview with Corridor Digital, he said to them, "No one cares. Now he's trying to join Hollywood. He wants to make feature films. That's what everyone wants to do. But all he did was make short films. He doesn't have the experience. While I wish the best for him and I hope he turns out great, his years of experience in making short films doesn't transfer to feature films. No one in Hollywood cares if you're a YouTube sensation. YouTube isn't what gets you into Hollywood. Making great content and getting it discovered is. It's your job to figure out how to get it discovered." In the interview, Freddie says he wished in 2010, instead of beginning to make short films and getting popular, he wished he had decided to make feature films. He wouldn't make a great hit right out of the gate. He said you should hit base runs. A base run, in his opinion, was any film that gets you where you need to go. You make a film, you learn from it, and you get maybe just a little bit of money back. You keep making feature films and you get connections along the way. You learn so much more through making feature films than you would through short films. You get so much farther, and you feel a lot more accomplished, because not everyone else is doing it. And when you're given the chance to make a feature film, you'll be ready for it. Now that Freddie's outside of YouTube, it's hard for him to find success. He hasn't been in the news recently. He's basically starting from scratch, and that's something his friends at Corridor Digital weren't ready to do. They're staying on YouTube because that's all they know. Maybe if back in 2010 they had started making feature films, maybe they'd be somewhere now. I'd love to see them succeed in the future, and I want to see a feature film from them. But when you get so good at making shorts, that ends up being all you do. And once again, we come back to the problem with making short films is that they're too good. You get so good at making a short film, you don't want to fail somewhere else. You get so good at the format of short films that that's the only stories you know how to tell. Little sketches, little skits, little action scenes, little horror shorts. If you practice your directing chops on those, that's great. But if that's all you do, there's a problem. The problem with making shorts is that they aren't going to get discovered. And if they do, that's great. But for the majority of us, you need to work on features. If all we do is make shorts and get discovered by them, we need to be prepared to make features. Shorts are not just scenes from a film. We learned that the hard way. We put a scene from a feature film into a short film contest, and we lost a lot of money. If you want to make feature films, you have to be committed to it. They're more expensive. They're more time consuming, and they take a long time to finish. You have to have patience, and you have to be committed to seeing it through. But the reward from it is so much better. If you make a short film, it's just another short film. Maybe it won some awards, maybe it gets accepted into film festivals, and you're on to your next one. You keep working at short films, and you get stuck into a rut, always assuming that someday you'll get ready to make your feature film. What then? Do you make Ken? Do you make a flop? Or do you go on to make Lights Out because you were prepared? Some people don't get that second chance. Thank God George Lucas did. Neil Blomkamp was prepared for District 9. He was ready, and while the short film was to show off what he could do, he was prepared to make feature films. So if you do choose to only make short films, write some scripts, prepare yourself to make a feature film, and then practice your writing, your directing, your lighting, your acting, all in short films. Everyone's doing short films. It's hard to get discovered, it's hard to stand out, and it's easy to do. But if the crowd's going one direction, it's sometimes good to go against it. When all you make are short films, it's going to be hard to make a feature film. And I sure don't want my feature film to flop when I'm given that chance.